You wake up every day believing you need motivation, but the truth is harder than that, colder than that, quieter than that, because motivation is nothing more than a feeling, and feelings change with the weather. They rise when music is loud and disappear when the room goes silent. They show up when life is easy and vanish the moment pain knocks at the door. And if your life is built on something that's fragile, then your future is fragile too, and deep down you already know it. You have felt it on the mornings when the alarm rings and your body feels heavy. When no one is watching, when no speech is playing in your ears. When there is no one clapping, no one praising, no one reminding you of your dreams, just you and the dark ceiling above you. And in that moment, the truth stands in front of you like a mirror, asking a simple question you keep avoiding. Are you dangerous or are you soft? Are you disciplined or are you dependent? Because the world does not reward the excited man. It rewards the controlled man, the man who can move without noise, the man who can act without emotion, the man who does what must be done even when every part of him wants to quit. And this is where most people fail, not because they are stupid, not because they lack talent, but because they are addicted to inspiration, addicted to waiting for the perfect mood, addicted to speeches, videos, quotes, and temporary fire that burns bright for an hour and dies for the rest of the day, and they call that progress, they call that effort. But it is only entertainment, a comfortable lie that makes them feel strong without ever becoming strong. Because real strength is built in silence, in repetition, in boring routines that nobody celebrates, in days that look exactly the same, in slow improvement that does not feel heroic. And that is why discipline feels heavy, because it does not give you dopamine. It gives you responsibility. It does not make you excited. It makes you consistent. And consistency is ugly. It is waking up at the same time every day, training when your muscles ache, studying when your mind is tired, working when everyone else is relaxing, saying no when pleasure calls your name, walking away from distractions that promise comfort, and choosing the harder path again and again until it becomes normal, until suffering becomes familiar, until your mind stops negotiating with you, because the weak mind negotiates. It asks for breaks, it searches for shortcuts, it makes deals with comfort, but the disciplined mind does not talk, it executes. It does not ask how it feels, it asks what must be done, and that is the difference between a man who wishes and a man who wins. One waits for energy, the other creates structure. One hopes for the right moment, the other moves regardless of the moment, and slowly, almost invisibly, the second man becomes dangerous. Not loud, not aggressive, not dramatic, but sharp, controlled, predictable to himself, and unpredictable to everyone else, because he has mastered the one thing most people never touch: control over his own impulses. And once you control your impulses, the world loses its power over you. Distractions become small, temptations become weak. Noise becomes irrelevant, you stop reacting and start deciding, and that is when fear disappears, because fear feeds on uncertainty, but discipline removes uncertainty. It gives you a system, a code, a personal law you follow no matter what happens, good day or bad day, motivation or no motivation, praise or criticism. You still move, you still work, you still show up. And at first it feels lonely, painfully lonely, because nobody congratulates discipline. Nobody posts about quiet sacrifice. Zeus! Nobody sees the hours you spend alone sharpening yourself, and you start to wonder if it is worth it. You start to question whether anyone will ever notice. But that question itself is proof that you are still thinking like the crowd, because dangerous men are not built for attention. They are built for capability. They do not train to be seen, they train to be ready. Good, then listen carefully, because once you decide that discipline will replace motivation, your life does not suddenly become easier, it becomes heavier, quieter, more demanding. And this is the part nobody shows you, the part where excitement disappears and all that remains is responsibility, where every day feels like a test of character, not talent. And you begin to understand that becoming dangerous is not about learning how to fight the world. It is about learning how to fight yourself. Your laziness, your cravings, your need for comfort, your constant desire to escape discomfort. Because the real enemy has always been inside your own mind, whispering small justifications that sound harmless but slowly destroy your standards, telling you that one day off will not matter, that one distraction is normal, that you deserve a break. And those whispers feel gentle, almost caring. But they are the same whispers that keep millions of men average, soft, replaceable, and you start to see it everywhere. People talking about big dreams with zero structure, people planning success with no discipline, people consuming endless information but never executing. And you realize that most lives collapse, not from tragedy but from small daily compromises, tiny acts of weakness repeated for years. And that realization should disturb you, because it means failure is not dramatic. It is quiet, slow, and visible, like rust eating metal from the inside. And if you are not careful, you will decay without even noticing, smiling on the outside while becoming weaker on the inside. And that is why discipline must be ruthless, not emotional, not negotiable, ruthless like a law you cannot break, because the moment you allow exceptions, the structure collapses. The moment you say just this once, the standard lowers, and once standards lower, respect for yourself disappears. And without self-respect, you cannot build real confidence. Only fake bravado, and fake bravado shatters the first time life hits hard. But disciplined confidence is different. It is quiet, almost invisible. You do not talk about it. You feel it in the way you walk, in the way you look at problems, in the way you stay calm when others panic, because you know something they do not know. You know you can endure. You know you can work longer than your feelings. You know you can stay focused when others get distracted, and endurance is terrifying to the world because talent can be matched, luck can change, but a man who refuses to quit becomes impossible to compete with. And this is where the transformation begins to hurt, because discipline forces you to cut things out of your life that once gave you comfort: late night scrolling, meaningless conversations, empty pleasures, constant entertainment, the little habits you used to hide inside. And at first, you feel the absence like withdrawal. You feel bored, restless, uncomfortable, your mind searching for stimulation, and you realize how addicted you were to noise, how dependent you were on constant distraction just to avoid sitting alone with your own thoughts. And now there is silence, long stretches of silence, where it is just you and the work, you and the task, you and the uncomfortable truth about who you really are. And many people run from the stage because silence exposes everything. It shows you your weaknesses without mercy. It shows you how easily you used to quit, how often you lied to yourself, how much time you wasted pretending to try. And that realization burns, but that burn is necessary, because pain is information. Pain shows you where you must grow. And instead of escaping it like before, you stay, you sit with it, you let it teach you. And slowly your tolerance increases. Things that once felt unbearable become normal. Early mornings become routine. Hard training becomes expected. Long hours of focus become standard, and you stop celebrating small effort. You start demanding more from yourself, not because you hate yourself, but because you finally respect yourself enough to stop accepting weakness. And this is the mindset shift that changes everything. You no longer ask what you feel like doing today. You ask what the mission requires. And once you adopt that language, life becomes clearer, simpler, almost military in its precision. There is a task and there is execution. No drama, no excuses, no emotional speeches, just action. And with each completed task, your identity changes. You stop seeing yourself as someone who is trying. You start seeing yourself as someone who does. And identity is powerful, because once you believe you are disciplined, you protect that identity, you act in alignment with it, you refuse behaviors that contradict it. And over time, this alignment turns you into something rare, a person who can be trusted by himself, a person whose word means something even if nobody else hears it. And that self-trust is the foundation of real power, because if you cannot trust yourself to follow through, nothing else matters. Not goals, not plans, not dreams. But when you trust yourself completely, when you know that if you decide something, it will get done no matter how long it takes, a strange calm settles inside you. A calm that looks almost cold from the outside. People might think you are distant, serious, too focused, but they do not understand that you are building something they are not willing to build. You are constructing inner armor layer by layer, habit by habit, sacrifice by sacrifice, until distractions bounce off you and pressure no longer scares you. And this is where the word dangerous starts to make sense. Not dangerous in anger, not dangerous in violence, but dangerous in capability, dangerous in reliability, dangerous because when you say you will accomplish something, it happens, dangerous because you cannot be controlled by comfort or fear. And in a world full of distracted minds, that level of control is rare, almost threatening. Because controlled men change outcomes. They lead, they create, they dominate environments without shouting, and they do it simply by being consistent when everyone else is inconsistent, by staying focused when everyone else drifts, by enduring when everyone else collapses. And every day you continue this process, stacking small disciplined actions like bricks. One workout, one study session, one hard choice, one sacrifice at a time, and it feels slow, painfully slow. Like nothing is happening, but beneath the surface something solid is forming, something heavy, something stable, a foundation that cannot be shaken by moods or trends or opinions. And while others keep chasing the next spark of motivation, jumping from one burst of excitement to another, you are becoming quieter, steadier, harder to break, and you start to realize that the less you talk about your goals, the stronger you become, because your energy is no longer wasted on words. It is invested into action, and action compounds day after day, week after week, until one day the gap between you and everyone else is so wide that it cannot be explained by luck. And people will ask how you did it, what secret you followed, what inspiration you found, and you will almost want to laugh. Because there was no secret, no magic, no dramatic turning point, only discipline. Only the decision to show up when you did not want to, only the refusal to negotiate with weakness, only the choice to keep going in silence long after motivation died. And that quiet persistence, that stubborn loyalty to your own stand, is what is slowly turning you into someone the world cannot ignore. Someone who does not need permission, someone who does not wait for encouragement, someone who moves forward whether anyone believes in him or not. And that is the moment you understand that discipline is not just a habit. It is a form of power, a power that reshapes your character from the inside out. And once you taste that power, once you feel what it is like to control yourself completely, there is no going back to being soft, no returning to the old version of you who needed constant reassurance, because now you have seen what you can become. And the old life feels too small, too weak, too fragile to ever accept again. Then understand this final truth and let it settle into your bones without resistance, because this is where everything either hardens or collapses. This is where you stop pretending and decide who you really are going to be, because discipline is not a phase, not a challenge, not a temporary season of self-improvement. It is an identity, a permanent standard you either live by or you don't. And if you treat it like something you can visit and leave, life will treat you the same way, giving you temporary results that disappear just as fast. But if you lock yourself into it completely, if you burn the bridges back to your old excuses, if you remove the option of quitting, something irreversible happens inside you, something cold and steady like steel being forged under pressure, and you begin to notice that the world itself starts responding differently to you. Not because you demand respect, not because you talk louder, but because your presence changes, your posture changes, your eyes change. There is less hesitation, less neediness, less searching for approval. And people sense it even if they cannot explain it. Because most men move with doubt, but you move with certainty. Most men wait for permission, but you act with quiet authority. And that difference is felt in every room you enter. And yet none of this comes from aggression. None of this comes from trying to dominate anyone. It comes from mastering yourself so completely that nothing external can shake you. Not rejection, not failure, not boredom, not pain. Because you have already faced all of that alone, in silence, day after day, and survived. And once you survive your own mind, nothing outside seems intimidating anymore. And this is the stage where discipline becomes almost spiritual in its depth, not in belief but in awareness. You become intensely aware of every choice you make, every minute you waste, every habit you allow to exist. And you stop living unconsciously, you stop drifting, you start living deliberately, like every action has weight, like every hour matters. And that level of awareness cuts away the last pieces of weakness, because when you see clearly, you cannot lie to yourself anymore. You cannot pretend you are trying when you are not. You cannot hide behind stories. You either execute or you accept the truth that you chose not to. And this honesty is brutal, but it is clean. It removes confusion. It removes self-pity. It removes fantasy, leaving only reality. And reality is simple. You either do the work or you don't. You either train or you don't. You either focus or you drift. And once life becomes that simple, excuses look childish, almost embarrassing, and you start to feel a quiet disgust toward the version of yourself that used to complain. Because now you understand how much time was wasted, how much potential was left unused, how many days were traded for comfort, and instead of mourning that past, you use it as fuel. A constant reminder of who you refuse to become again. And that memory keeps you sharp, keeps you alert. Alert. Keeps you disciplined even when progress is slow, even when results take longer than expected, because you are no longer chasing quick rewards. You are building permanence, something that lasts, something that cannot be taken from you. And permanence is built slowly, painfully slowly. Like carving stone with bare hands, and many nights you will sit alone, exhausted, questioning whether anyone will ever understand the path you chose. And the honest answer is they probably will not, because most people never choose it. Most people choose comfort, choose distraction, choose the easy explanation, and then wonder why their lives feel out of control. But you are no longer most people. You stepped away from that crowd the moment you chose discipline over feelings, and that separation creates loneliness, yes, but it also creates clarity. Because when you stand alone, you hear your own thoughts better. You see your own weaknesses more clearly, and you become responsible for everything. No blaming, no pointing fingers, no waiting for rescue, just ownership. Complete ownership, and ownership is heavy, but it is also power, because when everything is your responsibility, everything is also within your control. And control is what makes a man dangerous. Not strength alone, not intelligence alone, but control. Control over time, control over attention, control over emotion, control over behavior, and when those pieces align, you become precise, deliberate, almost surgical with your actions. You stop wasting energy on arguments. You stop reacting to drama. You stop chasing validation. You simply move toward your goals step by step with relentless focus, and people mistake that calm for coldness. But it is not coldness. It is discipline protecting your energy. It is you refusing to bleed attention on things that do not matter. And with every year that passes, this discipline compounds. Your skills sharpen, your mind steadies, your body hardens, your habits lock into place. And what once required effort becomes automatic, like breathing. And this is the final evolution. When discipline is no longer something you force, but something you are. When showing up is natural. When hard work is default. When quitting feels foreign. And at that point, you do not need motivation at all, because motivation is for those who are undecided. And you are no longer undecided. You decided long ago that you would become capable, reliable, unshakable. And that decision echoes through every action you take, quietly, consistently, without announcement. And one day you look back and realize you are not the same person who started this journey. The fear is smaller, the excuses are gone, the distractions have lost their grip. And in their place stands someone solid, someone disciplined, someone dangerous in the most controlled and mature way possible. A person who does not chase applause, does not chase feelings, does not chase easy comfort, but chases mastery, chases responsibility, chases excellence in silence. And when the world finally tests you, when real pressure arrives, when chaos surrounds you and others freeze, you will not need a speech. You will not need inspiration. You will simply breathe, focus, and execute. Because this is what you train for every single day. This is what all those lonely mornings and late nights built inside you. A calm, steady force that cannot be shaken. And in that moment, you will understand the full weight of what discipline has given you. Not excitement, not noise, but power. Quiet, controlled, undeniable power. The kind of power that comes from knowing you can trust yourself completely. And once a man reaches that level of self-trust, he does not need anything else, because he has already become everything he once searched for. And that is what it truly means to become dangerous through discipline. Not loud, not reckless, not emotional, but focused, prepared, and unbreakable, moving forward in silence, while the rest of the world keeps waiting for motivation that never lasts.